the track and the train cars, things like that. And he does tell a few corny jokes every now and then too. He's a comedian at heart.
Every train joke ever written.
Yeah. I think I've got it all the important stuff.
So.
Complimentary snacks and bathrooms, that's the most important.
The bathroom.
Oh, after about 2 miles, you'll start seeing the river over on this side. Probably see it for about 5, and then we cross over at Little Community Reliance, and it's over here the rest of the way that we get to see it. So, and that's why we also like to make you switch sides so you can everybody gets to see the river. That's the prettiest point up here. So.
Rather generous half. Ride the subway. You all set now? Hey.
Now I can look down the end of the track.
Now just watch the screen. You got a better view of it than anything.
Observation number 5.
That's this right there on the left-hand side.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
You're up for Sadie upstairs here. Hey, we're up here in the top.
Okay.
That's what they call it, observation.
Wait, no. Y'all have to, it's down here.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Keep an eye on us.
Well, you wouldn't have found nowhere to sit.
That's what I was looking.
We all right?
No show. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome aboard. Glad to have you here at the Hiwassee River Railroad and Scenic Railway. My name is Robert Duncan. I will be your conductor and narrator today, tour guide, if you will. I'll go ahead and introduce everybody else. We've got our senior conductor, Mr. Harvey Blassingame, with us today. Now, Mr. Harvey's been retired for a long time, but he is a railroader at heart. So he always comes up and helps us out, so we're glad to have him with us. Now, Harvey started running this particular line for the L&N, the Louisville to Nashville, back in 1966. I was 6 years old. So, if you have any questions about what it was like for the L&N, or any questions about this particular line, railroading line, Mr. Harvey is the man to ask. Also aboard, we have our trainman, Mr. Patrick Carroll. He's Brother Tall Lad, and our car host, Mr. Will Davis. All right, everybody in car 2, turn around, wave to Mr. Cam Phipps back there in our store in car number 2. And our first class hostess today in our first class cars is Miss Luann Ellis. head of the cab, we're in pretty good shape today. We have a new guy, brand new guy up in the cab, and guess what? He retired from Norfolk Southern after about 40 years there, so he's not really a new guy. But he's doing our head conductor work, Mr. Glenn Rutledge, and our engineer today, been up here for many, many years, is Mr. Joe Wilson. So on behalf of everybody with the Hiwassee River District of the Tennessee Valley Railroad Museum, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you. Now there's a few rules to go over before we go too terribly far. Rule number one, there's no smoking or no vaping aboard the train. No, not even in the areas between the cars. Rule number two, please, no drinking of alcoholic beverages on the train. But if you see a still out there in the woods, you let me know where it's at. I'll report it, I promise. Rule number three, kids, I need your help with this one. Please, children, keep your parents or grandparents from running up and down the aisles of the passenger car. Why, I know our kids on board the train today are so well behaved. They would never think about running, but I know how papaws are, because I are one. But do be very careful as you walk through the train. You are allowed to walk through the train, except for the first class area if you don't have the wristband. And you can even stand in the area between the cars that we call the vestibule. Now we've got the windows open on the left side. Orient yourself left to right, facing the direction of travel. However, please leave the windows closed on the right side. That is because after we cross the river in Reliance, the mountain gets very, very close to that right side, and that way everybody gets a good view of not only the pretty river scenery, but our three ghost towns over here on the right side. We'll tell you all about those when we get there. And we'll remind you when we get to Martyr, the swamp side. Now we'll be coming into Reliance here just a little bit before we get there. There's a history about this railroad. Now back in the 1860s, after the war between the states, 1870s, 1880s, if you wanted to ship something freight-wise from Knoxville to Atlanta, it had to go through Chattanooga. And oftentimes it would get delayed by a day or two in Chattanooga. Well, the city leaders and businessmen of Knoxville decided they wanted a direct route between Knoxville, Tennessee, and Atlanta, Georgia. So they contracted with two different railroads. Knoxville Southern was formed then, and they started in Knoxville and worked their way south. They also contracted with the Marietta and North Georgia Railroad, and they had already worked their way up from Marietta to Canton, Georgia, and they just kept going north out of Canton. And those two crews met on the evening hours of June 30th, 1890. The railroad's been in place for a long, long time. Now that date in June was very important to the track workers. The city of Knoxville wanted this railroad finished before July 1st. They wanted their first train to run July 1st, and they did it. They had last evening hours of June 30th, put the last rail down, spiked it down to the cross ties, filled it in with gravel, and they were off the railroad. And about a year or so after opening, they went bankrupt. But they reformed immediately with a different bunch. And that bunch, they called it one railroad was the AKNM, the Atlanta, Knoxville, and Northern Railroad. Well, they knew immediately the first thing they had to do was figure out a better way up that mountain. So they found a civil engineer with L&N. He designed what we'll run through today called the Bald Mountain Loop, or Hiwassee Loop. Loop was finished in early 1897. Within a couple of years, the railroad started showing a good profit. In 1906, the railroad was bought out by the L&N, the Louisville and Nashville. They bought this line to connect their operations in Knoxville with their operations in Atlanta. Well, after running this line for a few years, they realized mountain railroading was not the key to fast service. So around 1908, they went further north out of Atlanta and took a right turn in Cartersville, Georgia, and built what they called the New Line. That's the current line that CSX uses to get from Atlanta to Knoxville. They still call it the New Line, and that gave this the nickname of the Old Line. Now the Old Line did run a lot of freight. Mr. Harvey used to work here, had plenty of business out of Copperhill, and did very well for several years. But eventually the copper industry started kind of faltering, and eventually copper ore was not dug out anymore, and so but for freight originally in 2004, we sold iron ore. We'll tell you about the iron ore when we get on down the road. Right now we're coming into Reliance,
Next project.
Reliance is a small farming community and a recreation community. Two good recreations here are rafting and trout fishing. Alright, coming up on the left is a house built very close to the tracks. That house was built by the railroad way back when, about 8 and they let the gentleman and his family live there. He had the most important job. He was called the watchman or bridge tender. It was his job, after a steam locomotive powered train had crossed over the wooden bridge, to grab 2 buckets of water and walk across the bridge. Car number 1, start looking to your left, you'll see that house with the rock foundation. That is the old bridge tender's house, right there. Car number 2, we're passing it now. Car number 3, passing by the old bridge tender's house. Car number 4, look to your left, the old bridge tender or watchman's house. Car number 5, you're passing by right now. Hey, good job, pretty good. Kept the old original wooden bridge from burning up. You see, the old steamboat once had a bad habit of sending hot cinders out the smokestacks or dropping hot embers and coals out of their firebox or ash pan. So they could have set the bridge on fire. So on dry days, he had to walk all the way across the bridge and douse any small fires or embers that he found glowing on it. And that included all hours of the day and night, too. Alright, if you look over to the right, look back a little bit, you'll see a little white store. That is Webb Brothers Grocery. The Webb Brothers started that store around the 1930s. And one of their grandsons and his family still run it. Not only is it a good general store, it's also one of our rafting facilities here in Reliance. Also on the right side, you see the old 2-story original Union Church. If you fall in, it'll make a man take some breath in a heartbeat. So, but it's very nice to raft during the hot summer days. And you will cool off very quickly. Very calm river, you can take the whole family in a big raft, or raft by yourself. Now we'll be coming up on our first ghost town here in just a few moments. It'll be on the right side. You're not going to see a thing. There's a little field and that's it. Because our first ghost town is the old town of Probst, Tennessee. Probst was established in 1906 as a logging town. The logging operation was run by the Pendergrass Lumber Company. And they even had their own logging railroad going along the banks of Big Lost Creek.
The blueberry field is a ghost
Big, they lost it, or they lost the big, or that's what they call it. Big Lost Creek. But they had a pretty big operation. They had their corporate headquarters there for Pendergrass. They had a company store. They had several houses of people that worked for the lumber company. And their own railroad. It was a pretty busy place. But in around 1925, the federal government came knocking on Mr. Pendergrass' door. Said, sir, you're going to have to shut down operation.
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
We're making all this area the Cherokee National Forest. You can't cut no more trees. Well, he wasn't too bad off. He just dismantled everything, moved it on somewhere else in Tennessee, and kept right on logging. But the little town of Probst slowly faded away. Now, when Mr. Harvey started in 1966, there was still one of the old
railroad track.
It's long gone. All you can see is the field right here. Car number 1. Look to
Looks
your
like
right.
they might have
That's
been
where the
working
old
like
town of Probst.
pennies on the rail of the train that left out.
There's Big Lost Creek,
Yeah.
passing through
Oh,
Probst.
they were messing around.
All that's left of it right now. That little path that you see curving around, that was their logging railroad. Car 4, 3 and 4, you're coming through Probst now. They would cut the old growth timber out, load it on flat cars, and send it by way of the L&N to their sawmill at Delaware. R5, you're coming through the old ghost town of Probst, Tennessee. Now we call them ghost towns because we've never seen a ghost there. But we call them that because they used to be a pretty big outfit. Now there's nothing there. Everything's gone.
Nothing but ghosts.
Now that we passed Probst, we are back in No, I don't care which one they are. They all taste good for the sign of husband and coleslaw. I said, why don't you keep me some? And he just looked at me seriously. Oh no, I throw them back. I've had a long talk with that brother. But he is a very good trout fisherman. Most of them are that way. They do it for the sport, not necessarily for the food. But anyway, you also, there's, in some of the deeper areas, there's smallmouth bass in the river. You see some of them girls fishing for that from time to time. But today the water is up, so that's when the raptors like it. So we may see some folks. I've already seen a few out there raptoring today. Now the disclaimer is we can't control those raptors. If you get moved, it ain't our fault. Now from time to time on the left side you may pass what looks like an old telephone pole. Those were actually the telegraph poles. Every depot was connected by telegraph. So when a train passed by one depot, that station agent would tap out his message to the next depot in the direction of the train. He would Powerhouse complex in just a few minutes. We're actually going through the middle of the complex. We're going to see the powerhouse on the left and the water pipes on the right. The water pipe come off the bigger pipe, go under our tracks and into the turbines and spin around, and the generators on top of the turbines generate electricity. Now, look at the history of this region. They already had two dams and powerhouses on the Ocoee River. That was pretty much all they did. This was a very sparsely populated area. So they came in the 1930s. They built another one. They built the Hiwassee Dam and Hiwassee Powerhouse further to North Carolina in the mid-late 1930s. And then in 1940, they started construction on two more powerhouses and dams. This one, the Appalachia Dam and Appalachia Powerhouse, as well as Ocoee number 3. So that gave them a total of 5 different power generating stations in this little area here. Well, everybody got to wondering, why do we need that much power? Well, it turns out that power was not needed here. They needed to send it north toward Knoxville. You see, before the war and during the war, there was something going on outside of Knoxville. There was this little bitty town that went from just a few hundred residents to over 70,000 residents and workers. The name of that town was Oak Ridge, Tennessee. Now our history books, of course, tell us that's where a nuclear research facility was.
Manhattan Project.
But nobody up there would tell us what it was. So we called it the Secret City. There are secrets that went to the grave there. Could you imagine having Oak Ridge built today with Facebook and Twitter and all that? There would be no secrets nowhere. But those people back then were told this is very important. And sure enough, in 1941, America became involved in the war. During the war years, the research in Oak Ridge and other war industries around Oak before Oak Ridge, towns like Maryville and Sweetwater got their electricity out of Knoxville. No more. They had to save that electricity for Oak Ridge and Knoxville. So that's why they built so many powerhouses in this area, to send that power on up north. Powerhouse complex in just a few minutes. We're actually going through the middle of the complex. We're going to see the powerhouse on the left and the water pipes on the right. The water pipe come off the bigger pipe, go under our tracks and into the turbines that spin around, and the generators on top of the turbines generate electricity. Now, look at the history of this region. They already had two dams and powerhouses on the Ocoee River. That was pretty much all they did. This was a very sparsely populated area. So they came in the 1930s. They built another one. They built the Hiwassee Dam and Hiwassee Powerhouse further to North Carolina in the mid-late 1930s. And then in 1940, they started construction on two more powerhouses and dams. This one, the Appalachia Dam and Appalachia Powerhouse, as well as Ocoee number 3. So that gave them a total of 5 different power generating stations in this little area here. Well, everybody got to wondering, why do we need that much power? Well, it turns out that power was not needed here. They needed to send it north toward Knoxville. You see, before the war and during the war, there was something going on outside of Knoxville. There was this little bitty town that went from just a few hundred residents to over 70,000 residents and workers. The name of that town was Oak Ridge, Tennessee. Now our history books, of course, tell us that's where a nuclear research facility was.
Manhattan Project.
But nobody up there would tell us what it was. So we called it the Secret City. There are secrets that went to the grave there. Could you imagine having Oak Ridge built today with Facebook and Twitter and all that? There would be no secrets nowhere. But those people back then were told this is very important. And sure enough, in 1941, America became involved in the war. During the war years, the research in Oak Ridge and other war industries around Oak Ridge and Knoxville, like Knoxville Division Work, Alcoa Aluminum, that region used 10% of all electricity generated in the entire United States. That's a lot of juice. Now, before the war, before Oak Ridge, towns like Maryville and Sweetwater got their electricity out of Knoxville. No more. They had to save that electricity for Oak Ridge and Knoxville. So that's why they built so many powerhouses in this area, to send that power on up north. Forestry Road. Kind of hard to get to, but you can get to it. TK still uses it for their big work trucks when they have to work on the powerhouse. So here we are, coming into the powerhouse complex. Footbridge and powerhouse on your left there.
Just twisting around.
out if they had fallen. Now, everybody in car one, start looking to the right, and you're going to see the big water pipes. Big green pipes that bring the water rushing down the mountain under our tracks and into the turbines. And it spins those turbines around and around, thereby generating electricity. Car 2's basket now, those are 8 feet in diameter, and they come off an even bigger pipe that is 16 feet. That's the diameter of that pipe that tunnels through the mountain, almost 9 miles away to the dam. Cars 3, 4, and 5 come into the middle of the complex right now. Powerhouse on your left, supply pipe on your right. Now, they built the dam first. They blocked up the water of the Hiwassee River, so that lowered the level of the river in this area. The narrowest part of the narrows, or the NARS, how you can say it. Now, those of you sitting on the right side of the train, you might have noticed a little white column, little white post sticking up with a number painted on it. That's called a milepost. Yep, they are 1 mile apart. And those mileposts were installed by the L&N, the Louisville and Nashville. And their headquarters was in Louisville, Kentucky. That's where they call the 0 milepost was. Now we're about to pass the 354 milepost. That means back in the days of the L&N, we could turn around, and if all the switches were lined correctly, in 354 miles, we'd be in downtown Louisville, Kentucky. Look here on the left, on the right rather, you'll see the 354 mileposts. Now we still use those. We kept the numbers current. For example, if the track guy was on the tracks in the same direction we would be calling out milepost numbers. He would also call them out. That way we know where he's at, and he would know where we're at. And you notice we don't have the red, yellow, and green signals like the big class ones do. So we all are communication where we're at by radio. There we go. Car 2 just passed 354 milepost. Now ahead of us is the 355. It's the second of our ghost towns. The old ghost town of McFarland, Tennessee. McFarland was a railroad town. They had a big depot there. They had a store, a county store, country store rather, where the depot was. Now we do see people camping there or parked there and gone hunting. Perfectly legitimate. This is part of the Cherokee National Park. You can still get to McFarland by a little 4-wheel drive trail that goes on up to the forestry road. Car number 5 was built in 1954, specifically for the Canadian Pacific Railroad. Now there were only 18 cars built like that. That's because that's a very special car. It's the end car, or tail car, on their cross-country train called the Canadian. It goes from the East Coast to the West Coast of Canada. Just like the Great Northern, they added a dome to it, so you get all that beautiful Canadian rocky view. And they used it as a first-class car also. Car number 5 served with the Canadian Pacific for many years. And then a rail car aficionado bought it from Canadian Pacific and used it on his, he was a member of the Blue Water Railroad Museum up in Michigan. Now, they didn't have their own tracks. They ran their trains on what's called a short line. That short line railroad got bought out by a bigger short line. And when they found out they were going to pay a bunch of money for a liability insurance for passenger train, they said, sorry folks, no more passenger trains. So there the fella had that car all to himself, nothing to do with it. Well, the Railroad Museum put some of their cars up for sale. And our bosses in Chattanooga went up, and we actually bought 2 rail cars from the Blue Water Railroad Museum. And while they were up there, they met the gentleman that owns car 5. Well, they sat him down and said, look, fella, you ain't got nowhere to run this car. Why don't you give it, lease it to us? And we'll send you a nice check every quarter, spring, summer, and fall. And you send us that car, we'll use it as a first class. So he wisely decided to. He gets a little money every now and then, and we've got a nice car. He shipped it from Lansing, Michigan, all the way down to Etowah, and our friends at CSX brought it out to us about 10 years ago. Car number 5 park. They named all those end cars after large provincial parks throughout the country. Canada, and the Algonquin Park is north of the city of Quebec, from my understanding. We're coming through the bald spot of Bald Mountain, Tennessee. Alright, now what ties the loop together is called the loop trestle. First we go underneath a big wooden trestle. Then we go around a big Ball River Falls. You know where it is.
Yeah, there it
But
is.
when they made the loop, they brought that mountain spur back in,
That is pretty
main
steep,
line,
though.
what we're on now, and they added another section we're passing right now. Car 2 can see that little path right through there. They made a great big triangle of rails called a Y. A Y is how you turn the train around when you don't have a turntable. You actually turn the entire train around. What it is, basically, a great big 3-point turn. We wanted to go. Alright, car 1 just passed it. Car 2 right there, you see that old Martyr sign? That's all that's left of the old L&M depot. 345 Lincoln Ave. Now I'll be off assisting Mr. Carroll with the switching operations.
Wow.
That's where the mayor lives right there. You see what happened on the city lights on the boat right. But we'll pick up with some more narrative when we start back down the mountains. In the meantime, enjoy your short stay here. Beautiful downtown.
We got beautiful downtown cars.
Very eclectic.
This actually.
I don't know about what
No, you don't.
I like that Airbnb back there.
It's the game that I play. It includes the weather, and it says it's raining. It's a lot of cloudy over here.
I haven't seen one whatsoever. My phone gave up.
We got rain over yesterday.
Yes, we did.
Oh, were they? Well, okay, I feel better now. There you go. I thought we were in some kind of ghost
The
town.
land that time forgot.
A ghost town that actually has a
Yeah, I
town.
had watching Spin Dooley last night. I kind of got the hidden
Well, sometimes they're laying out in the middle of the road where all the dogs hang out.
Yeah, they lay out in the middle. That's what they do at our place. They sleep.
One car, now one. A little bit now.
Okay to walk up there.
That'll do over.
He gonna bump. Watch out, don't bump him.
That come to me about 5 feet, took up a real easy.
So someone hit the car and
I had them hit hard enough they knocked the drinks out of my fridge down there. And then some of them you don't even feel it.
Like a loader dock.
I've seen
4
it.
foot,
I've worked around
2 more.
feed mills and stuff when they come
1
in and get
foot,
the cars.
that'll do.
That was a good one.
Alright, stretch a little bit over.
But I've seen them hit so hard you could hear it on the other
Oh,
end
yeah.
of the plant.
When it's freight cars, it ain't too bad. But when you got people and they're old cars, they need to be a little easier with
That's a
it.
good one on that 3 steps of rubbish.
Also gonna make it.
Well, she don't out talk back. They're not waving at it.
Lots of people see